Welcome back to the Hive School, where we help you one-up your workflow. Running the Hive School channel has been an incredible journey. Sharing knowledge and connecting with all of you in this amazing community has been really rewarding. But I also know that I'm just one voice, and there's so much more that we can offer by bringing others to share their experiences and perspectives. That's why I'm thrilled to kick off a new series where we're going to invite inspiring individuals from the industry to join us. For our first episode, I'm excited to welcome Emily Malone, disguised as Head of Live Events. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's really nice to be up here. I'm ashamed it's taken me this long to come and visit, to be honest.
It's a pleasure to have you here. So for people who maybe don't know you, tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into the industry?
So my start in the industry was, I kind of always had this fascination with theatre. My parents used to take us to go see the theatre a lot as kids, and I loved going to see plays, musicals, and there was something about going to see something that's created entirely from nothing, and that was so all-encompassing, and that you really you believe, like, while you're there, it's real. And I just loved the idea of being able to be a part of creating something like that for other people. So that was kind of my reason for wanting to get into this. So I ended up at RADA doing the technical theatre and stage management course, trying to figure out like how I fitted into that, because it's one of those courses where you try a bit of lots of different things. It's all very practical, very hands-on, because I just knew I wanted to do something, but not exactly what. So that was my start.
That's amazing. I found myself on a fairly similar path. I ended up doing stage management at Rose Bruford,
right?
Whilst sort of floundering around trying to work out what it was within this industry that I wanted to do, and somehow ended up doing video things all these years later. Yeah. So I don't think anybody gets into this world intentionally. It's lots of happy accidents, right?
I think so. That's kind of what I love about it. And I find this really interesting. Like, always talking to people about this, like, how did you get started? Because no one has the same story.
No.
And there are people who got into it intentionally, and I think there's more and more of that now, that there's dedicated courses that teach it all the way through, and there's some amazing courses out there. But I do love sort of finding out how people's happy accidents came about. Because mine very much, like, they didn't actually even teach video at the time as a discipline when I was studying. And that was a kind of happy accident in its own right, that I kind of stumbled into video. And that was purely because I was doing bits of casual work to, like, pay my way while I was studying. And one of those jobs, I mean, I did all kinds of things, as I'm sure as a lot of people do. Did folly spotting, not very good at that. Really, really not my bag. Did, like, general crew things, sort of like, here's a flight case, receive, put over here kind of thing. Sure. Wasn't very good at that. Turns out if you run a heavy flight case towards me, I don't stop it. I just carry on going in the same direction as it. Wasn't so hot at that. And then stumbled across video doing, again, like, just general crew stuff. Can't remember exactly what it was for, but it was at the old Vic. And it was the first time I'd come across video really being used in a production. It was Catalyst. And again, I can't remember exactly what it was, but something wasn't working, like something wasn't okay. So they parachuted in this guy called Ben to just come and make everything fine again. And he was brilliant. Like, he wandered in, solved it all, did a bunch of other stuff as well, just basically made everything good. And did it he was so unfazed and he was so unflapped, and just calmly got on with it, all the while fielding these random questions from, like, 19, 20-year-old me, being like, oh, what's that? And he was just so, just generous with his time and very patient. And it was one of those moments where, watching him, I was kind of like, that's cool. That's very cool. Not only what he was doing was very cool, but just the way he was about it. And I just had one of those moments of going, I think I want to do that.
Yeah,
that's
totally.
Very interesting. And it, completely informed my choices going on.
It's amazing how, like, the people you meet, especially in the early years of your career, can really, like, shape how you end up spending the rest of it.
Yeah.
So again, for those people who perhaps don't know, tell us a little bit about what you're doing at Disguise.
So my current role is I'm the head of live events at Disguise. So I've been there for, just a little sort of backstory. I've been there for 5 years now, which is
amazing. Yeah. Time flies.
God, I know time does fly. It really does. And my role there is I'm kind of evangelising, advocating for Disguise in the live events world and for the live events world at Disguise. So I'm kind of sort of the mouthpiece to represent that community in sort of both directions. My job falls under, I'm in a team called Customer Excellence, which is like a big umbrella team, and we cover a lot of the teams that you would interact with from the moment you start your journey with Disguise, sort of as tech solutions. So going, oh hey, you need these servers and these servers to fit together if you're going to do this, all the way through to support and training. So we're kind of the customer facing side. And as part of that, I do a huge breadth of things, which is kind of why I love it, actually. It's very, very varied. So from things like talking to people like you, to going to trade shows, to finding opportunities to go out on site and bring engineers with, so that we can come and see how this thing that we're developing actually fits in with the sort of the very nuanced context in which it gets used. I spend a lot of time hanging out with products, talking about what they have going on, and again, kind of like feeding in. There's a lot of making connections, a lot of providing context, and that's actually how I ended up in this role. It was through sort of naturally falling into a kind of cadence of talking to people and going, oh hey, that's really interesting. I wonder if that would inform this decision, or I wonder if so-and-so should know about this. And there's a lot of just trying to join dots and make sure that we're all pulling in this direction that's going to be really beneficial. So obviously we want to make cool stuff, you want to use cool stuff. Yeah. So kind of trying to join those dots and make sure that we end up with cool stuff.
Yeah. And we've sort of skipped a little bit in the middle, really, haven't we? Because prior to your role with Disguise, you were a Disguise power user, right? You were doing some of the biggest, most exciting things in theatre.
That's a very generous way of putting it. But yeah, I was on the other side of the fence for quite a long time, and that is actually how I ended up at Disguise. So I spent probably 10 years or so as a media server programmer. Not all that time on Disguise. I started off on Catalyst,
of course, yeah.
Which fed in from that moment at the old Vic, and I spent quite a lot of time on Hippo as well. Control with the lighting desk. So kind of like meandering my way through all these different technologies, kind of as I came across them, as different people were, they were on different productions, and you kind of learn what's in front of you, really. And I ended up sort of progressively using Disguise more and more and more. And I got to a point after probably about 10 years where I was very conscious of the fact that, I loved my job, I loved doing what I was doing, but I was bouncing from project to project to project and like really not coming up for air. I was thinking, I really should think maybe a little bit longer term at some point. I'm going to take a little bit of a fire break and kind of work out what I am going to do rather than just continuously, be bouncing around. And I'd recently been doing quite a lot of work where Disguise, either support or devs were involved. There's some Omnical stuff where they were coming out quite a lot as it was being developed. So I was interacting with them quite a lot. And a few of my friends that were freelance had recently gone to work for manufacturers or for rental houses, including a couple who had gone to Disguise.
Sure.
And I was kind of looking around and going like, that looks cool. What they're doing, that looks good. I think I could see myself there as well. I think I'd fit with that. So I was like, I'm going to take just a pause. I'm going to go and, maybe see if they'll take me for like 6 months or something, and then figure out what I'm going to do. Because it'd be 9 to 5, I'll have loads of brain space. I'll be able to, really think ahead. And so 5 years later.
And the rest, as they say, is history, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It turned out that it wasn't quite what I expected, but in the best possible way. It was the sort of same team vibe as I had on projects, but in the support team. So it's a bunch of people you'll know really well. It's like Jamie Sunter, Luca Manzoni, Caesar, who's now at Brompton, Joao, who's at Nego. It was a really cool group of people.
Awesome.
And yeah, I loved it and I stayed.
Fantastic. I've got to say, from my point of view as a user that often interfaces with you, one of the things that I really appreciate is that you've sat in the same seats we have. You've been a programmer, you know what it's like to have a producer like breathing down the back of your neck, and the kind of time pressures that you kind of get on site and all that kind of stuff. So it's great to have somebody, working for a manufacturer who also has like a strong appreciation for the kind of environment that the product is being used in, and all that kind of stuff. So what are the things that are sort of coming up in disguise that you feel like you might be able to share with us?
So, I was thinking about this on the way up here, and I basically sort of cherry picked. This is my personal bias. These are things I'm excited about that are coming up relatively soon. So the things are there's three things. There's two that are in beta, one in alpha, so relatively close coming up. The first one is, I think, my favourite. I know you're not supposed to have favourites, but I totally have favourites. Like features like children, but I totally have favourites. This one is one that we've been working on kind of in collaboration with Dan Scully, who's a New York-based programmer in theatre, and with Rod McLaughlin, who does more sort of corporate side. And this is, you'll be very familiar with our UI is, we have a monochrome aesthetic. So we're adding a little splash of colour. And there's going to be a new feature there where you can basically choose colour schemes for your layers. So whatever makes sense to you as you're working, it might, I don't know, like whatever rules you want to set up, it might be based on your mappings, it might be based on your layer types or whatever it is. But you can set up these rules to apply colour schemes. So imagine you've got this big composite stack of, God, however many layers. And somebody's like, the one that's outputting to this output or is, feeding into this. And you're just like, 1 second. Yeah, you can colour code now. So they just jump out at you that bit more easily. And it helps other people who might be looking at your screen who aren't programming.
Sure.
It helps them quickly identify what it is that you're looking at and working with. And kind of in that same body of work, again, in collaboration with those same people, we're adding, it's such a little thing, but it does make a difference when you're looking at it. Just like a little highlight when you've selected a layer, when you've clicked on it, again, to make it just jump out a bit more. And indicators on the layer itself to show where you've got keyframes. So you don't have to pop open the layer, open the keyframe editor and look along to see what you've got sequenced. You can just kind of look at it as that big stack and see what's going on at a glance. So the reason I'm excited about that is because it's kind of all about, it's about having confidence that you can do something fast and you can do it correctly.
Yeah, sure.
And being able to see things at a glance just speeds up that whole process so much. So that's my favourite one, I think.
I've got to say, so Dan and Rod's scripts have been, like, they've made them available to the community for like quite a long time now.
Yeah.
But not being officially backed by Disguise, you've always been fairly off the reservation if you wanted to kind of engage with them. So I think it's huge and really exciting if you're collaborating together to bring them in as like an official part of the software. So, that's having seen some of the other things that Dan and Rod have been up to in their kind of scripting worlds, this could maybe just be the tip of the iceberg, maybe.
Yeah, they're very, very smart people, and they've made some amazing things. So yeah, taking inspiration from those is really exciting.
That's fantastic.
I did a trip to New York fairly recently, and I was chatting to both of them there, and seeing kind of that in action was, I think, like a real moment at tipping the scales of kind of being like, there is this huge benefit here, and it's really quite hard to describe sometimes, but seeing it as like a clear A and B and going, it's like playing Where's Wally? Like, very quickly, how fast can you point out which one of these things you're looking for?
Sure. Yeah.
So that's really cool. That's been really exciting, and they're both, they're obviously very collaborative people and great to work with.
Yeah, excellent humans.
Yeah. So that's sort of a more sequencing-y based one. The other two things we have going on at the moment are OS Manager.
Yeah.
Which is, so you're familiar with the fact that if you need to reimage a server, so essentially set it back to factory default, you've got this bag of USB sticks that you haul around with you. So this is an application. So we're making an application where you make a profile, you say, this is a VX profile, and I'm going to select these servers that are available to me on the network, and I'm going to reimage those, applying this profile to them. So the idea is it removes all the steps that if you're in a rush, you might make a mistake on, and suddenly you're back at step 0 again. It just makes it that bit easier and less time consuming to get on with. And if you've got a rack full of servers, or if you're a rental house,
sure.
So I think there's a lot of people who will benefit from that, hopefully.
That's great.
And then another one more on the engineering side is monitoring APIs. So this is like service events that you can subscribe to. There's a little widget you get in the bottom right-hand corner with all the graphs that it draws. You can monitor all the different bits and bobs. So this is so that you can take that outside of the designer UI.
Yeah.
So you can feed that into whatever system you're using for monitoring, if you're monitoring the wider system, or you can build your own tools. It's kind of just to give people the options to take that information and use it however best fits them. So that I hope will be a really useful one for engineers. I'm kind of excited about that.
That's cool. I've got to imagine that like has some big implications for like fixed install as well. Like when you're putting servers down in a specific place for a long period of time, being able to like build your own tools to monitor and manage that's got to be pretty
Yeah,
game changing.
yeah, I really hope so. I do believe it will be. And the nice thing about doing it as APIs like that is everybody wants something slightly different.
Sure.
So rather than trying to implement something that will really help this group of people, but kind of miss the mark a little bit for this group, we're kind of giving people the option to make what they need to so they can make whatever best suits their task.
That's great. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm a sucker for APIs. I think I think they're really cool. So yeah, or rather the things that you can make within the possibilities they open up are very cool. So I'm pretty
sure.
excited about that one.
I've got to say, ChatGPT plus APIs is a pretty dangerous combination. Like, yeah, I've been playing around with not these new monitoring APIs, but just the standard disguise APIs, like building little tools and applets. Like, yeah, that really fills in the blanks where I run out of talent for that kind of stuff. So.
I think you and me both. It's really good fun. I do spend quite a lot of time talking to ChatGPT with a bunch of APIs, going, okay, so how do we string together all these things and what can we make?
Fantastic. Are there other non-disguise technologies that you're excited about right now?
Uh, yeah, I mean, there's always exciting stuff. It's Shall I say, the things that are interesting to me are possibly not the same things as are interesting to everybody else. And maybe there's not, like there's not a huge sort of game-changing technology that'd be like, yes, this one. But kind of following on from what we are just talking about with APIs and the possibilities and ChatGPT, it's a lot of the sort of bitty things in between that I'm finding really interesting at the moment. A lot of the sort of the connection tools. Can't think of the best way of describing that. Like sort of the integrations and the integration sort of assists that you find, and that's probably really it probably doesn't do these things justice at all. Maybe I need to think of a better way of phrasing that, but kind of like just the added bits that elevate your workflow or make it a bit easier to do what you're trying to achieve. So like IBC, I went to IBC for the first time last year, and I spent a really disproportionate amount of time at the Densitron stand. Like I was just fascinated. And you have it's like I use Stream Decks, and I think they're amazing. But this, in the same sort of vein, I don't know if you've seen their touch panels. So they do like these rack mount.
No, okay.
It's like they have these rack mount ones, like all different sizes and kind of like monitors on stands. But everything's configurable. So you can choose how to lay out all your buttons or your icons or your faders or whatever you want it to be. It's a way of laying out all the things you might want to control and have at your fingertips or see in a custom layout that suits exactly your task that you're trying to execute. And it's got, I'm a sucker for things like this. Got haptics.
Yeah.
There are these like, yeah, there's little things like that. I feel like such a child getting excited by this, but I really am. There's like mechanical overlays, so you can have like mechanical buttons, or you can have rotary encoders or faders. And they also have sort of like software things where you can choose like all the different integrations and how they plug together to achieve different things. So it's ultimately configurable. But that's just the kind of thing that really appeals to me.
I think it's a testament to how important that stuff, the success that something like Companion's seen. Like that glue that holds everything together is so fundamental to making like cool shows.
Yeah, actually, that's a far better way of putting it. It's the glue that holds. You're right. It's the glue that holds everything together.
Oh, totally.
And I think they're the kind of things you overlook quite easily, but do have such a big impact on how you can get on with doing whatever you're supposed to do.
It's interesting you mentioned haptics as well, because like as much as I love the Stream Deck, the number of times I've thought I've pressed the Stream Deck button, but like maybe it hasn't triggered, or like I think like having that tactile feedback. I really love like mechanical keyboard keys for that kind of like tactile haptic feedback. So like looking at products that have, that feedback to know that you very definitely pressed a button or you've, changed a value of some sort, I think is pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah, because a lot of things are about confidence, aren't they?
Totally.
It's like in that moment, like, are you confident that you just did what you thought you'd done?
Yeah, especially for live as well. Like, when the artist's on stage, you really need to know that you press that go button.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think it is a lot of those things that help it for those. Live events is such a unique environment, and kind of thinking about some other tools that actually, I think I first came across when I was doing some on-site support stuff with you, Qpilot. In another way, it's far more than the glue. That seems a bit disingenuous, but it's those kind of things that pull everything together and just streamline things, and everyone's on the same page. Like, you very clearly know what's going on. Just those, I don't know, they're far more than assists, but they're very clearly things that have come from someone going, I have a problem, I want to solve my problem, how do I solve it? I'm going to make a product. And it just so clearly addresses a very specific need.
Totally.
And I think that is how Qpilot came about. I can't quite remember, I'm pretty sure that is how it came about, from somebody going, this ain't working for me, what can I do about it? Which is, I don't know, I think that's kind of inspiring.
I think Qpilot is such an interesting piece of software because it really, amplifies the relationship between all the different departments in a way that I just don't think there's anything else out there that is kind of helping facilitate those conversations, as well at the moment. So I think that's pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah, and I think there's an element of that whole interdepartmental thing and how you connect to all these groups of people, because things just get bigger, they get more complicated, they get more ambitious, and how do you keep everybody on track all together, pulling in the same direction? And I think there's as all of our lives are so much more interconnected as well. I mean, you have your doorbell talking to your oven, talking to your dishwasher, or whatever. You get so used to everything just very seamlessly and neatly connecting in a way where they're all speaking the same language. And it's interesting watching how that evolves and how our work world evolves, which is obviously far more, pro kit. But it's all the same. I don't know. We sort of expect the same level of ease and connectivity, I think.
Exactly.
So those products that allow us to do that, and as like we're adding APIs, as everybody else is adding APIs to allow you to start sticking things together more cohesively. And it's really interesting how those worlds are kind of colliding a little bit because our expectations are drawing them together.
Totally, yeah. I think there's something very powerful about having that, being able to string multiple different pieces of software and hardware together, so that when you press one button, maybe lots of different things can happen at the same time. You can trigger your media server, but also let lighting know that queue has activated and something like that. Like, that's how we make shows more cohesive and ultimately better for the viewer, the attendees as well. So. Yeah, fantastic. So on that incredible note, let's say a huge thank you to Emily for taking the time out to share her journey and insights with us. It's been such a pleasure having her here on the channel, and I hope you all found her story as inspiring and insightful as I did. If you're somebody who's working in this industry and you'd love to share your experiences and expertise, I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below or get in touch with us through the Hive School Discord, and let's make it happen. Thank you for watching this, and we'll see you in the next one.